over here driving the Squareback, and so far so good. I've driven around the block a few times already, and I haven't really noticed anything too crazy. So far it's just the steering and the alignment. I mean, look at the steering wheel, it's completely crooked. So I'm gonna continue driving it around and see if there's anything else that needs fixing. So far it seems like it's just the alignment. All right, so I have the rear lifted up and the wheels removed, and I'm gonna get started on aligning attempt to align the rear axles here. And because I have the swing axle style, it's a little bit tricky to get this really lined up. I mean, it's gonna be pretty difficult having to undo those nuts there, adjust it, put it on the ground, wait for it to settle, measure it, and then it's like wrong again. So then you have to take it off again, undo that, and whatever. So basically, I guess the closest to best thing that you can do with these is just loosen those and then push the adjustment as far backwards as possible, because as this kind of drops and settles, the axle will want to go that way. So naturally you want to have this as far back as possible so that when it goes down, it kind of lines up like that, and it's pretty much as close to zero toe as possible. To better explain what I was talking about over there, I pulled out my stock axle tube and my spring plate. You basically loosen this nut, and that nut down there, and when that's loose, you should be able to sort of push this axle forward or backwards. I'm gonna go ahead and push it backwards, and it allows me to do that because the holes here on the spring plate are oval. And now, actually pushing this thing backwards, I guess you can probably go with using a dead blow or a rubber mallet going this way, but I don't want to like risk damaging this or kind of moving anything around. So I've also been told to go ahead and use a ratchet strap. So I have this going around this axle tube, going through to the rear bumper here. Okay, I think that's gonna be about as far back as it's gonna go. Yeah, so I will just tighten that back up and call it a day. Okay, we're aligned. Toe in or toe out. Rear alignment is pretty much done, or at least to the best of my abilities. I can't even really tell, to be honest, how far toe in or toe out it is, but we'll see. The wheel dollies is gonna help with kind of showing me how it's gonna look once it's settled. Because it's a swing axle instead of an IRS, as the wheels touch the ground, it's gonna be technically kind of like this still, like not yet set. And then as you roll the wheel, the axle will start to level out like that. Because I have it on the dolly, as soon as it touches, it's gonna move the axle up that way already. Take a look at how the camber looks, and as it continues to settle down, it's gonna wanna curve a little bit more, causing it to go a little bit more negative camber. But as far as the toe, we'll see how it goes. Alright, I guess that's where it's gonna sit. Yeah, I guess. Hard to really tell how much I changed. I mean, it still kind of looks like it's a little bit of toe in. Let's take a look at the other side. Over here, looks like also a little bit toe in. So you see what I mean? That's why you have to set the axle to be as far back as possible so that as it goes in, it can kind of kick out a little bit more. And I mean, if it was any more further this way, then it would be even more toe in. So this is the best it's gonna get, really. Let's get started on the front. So don't mind that jerry can, because I'm waiting to put my gas tank back in until I finalize this whole alignment situation. Where I left you off last time with the whole front end alignment was just kind of weird. I mean, first thing, I have no idea what I'm doing. Second thing, I of course did that completely wrong because as I was measuring everything from the rotor to the rotor, it was up in the air, and technically you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to finalize the adjustment with the full weight of the vehicle. Even with this, without the gas tank, I may even actually add a little bit of weight up here just to compensate for that. But all that weight is supposed to be pushing down on the suspension, and then I adjust the alignment there. I'm gonna have to redo this whole thing. The other thing I learned is that, ow, I just bumped my head on this thing. Anyways, the other thing I learned is that I may have to, well, I do have to take off these tie rods because I may need to chop off a bit of the end right here. For any of you guys that are doing this without having done the shortened arms on left and right, because it is 1 inch shorter on both sides, this needs to be shortened to compensate for that. So I got this new tap here, which is a 12 by 1.5, and that is the same thread as the outer here, and I think the inner here. I'll figure that out. Getting to these bolts here on these tie rods were kind of tricky, but you just turn the steering wheel one way and it's easier to access one side, and then you turn it the other way and it's easier to do that. This side was a little bit more of a pain just because all this is going on, but I got them loose. This is also loosened with a 22, so now this is ready to basically come out. Right now the wheel is turned all the way to the passenger side, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this wheel as far, actually yeah, it's already this way, so I'm gonna just extend this so it continues to push this wheel out this way until finally this rod will just come out the further I go. Alright, I don't know what would have been easier if I just did this or if I had just lifted up the car and taken it off that way. I put the tap in just to make sure this is the right side, but this is going to be the inner on the passenger side. So the shop that I spoke with suggested I cut anywhere between 1/2 inch to about 3/4. So I'm going to go in the middle to about 5/8. Passenger tie rod is now done. I don't think I care enough about painting that. I'll probably just leave it, to be honest. I've chased it down with the tap, so it should be pretty clean. I went as far down as I could also to make sure the tie rod end will go in there with no problems. And this is the part that I chopped off. Again, this measures at about 5/8 of an inch, and the recommended range was about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So I chose right in the middle. Oh man. So I was referencing my old video to double check which orientation the reverse and the regular thread tie rod ends are. And here on the passenger side, we're actually okay because the side we want to cut off with the clamp is the regular thread, and that's the tap that I have. The other side here with the cone tip, that's reverse thread, so I don't really care about that one. And the problem is this one here on the driver's side, the side that has the end that has a cone is the side that is the regular thread, and I don't want to chop this side off because I would need to have like a cone tip here for this to work. The side that we want to cut over there that has the clamp is reverse thread, and I don't have the tap for that. I don't know, maybe I'll just bolt this in and leave that driver's side as is and try to see how close I can get my alignment. Okay, I'm going crazy over here, but I ended up taking off both tie rod ends on the passenger side. I ended up cutting the end tip of this tie rod end so that it actually bottoms out all the way here. And the same thing with this inner. I cut this down just a little bit shorter so it goes all the way down just like that. Hopefully this has enough adjustability so that I don't have to deal with the driver's side. So I'm going to toss this in and see how we look like. So I think you guys know me already. I'm definitely gonna go crazy knowing that I did something on that side that I wasn't gonna do here. So I ended up taking it out. This side here of the tie rod is the regular thread, but this is the part of the tie rod that I don't want to cut because it's the cone shape. So I can't really do that. But I did notice that this thread for the tie rod doesn't quite bottom out all the way in. So I'm actually gonna take this out, cut the tie rod thread like just a tiny bit shorter, that way this can go all the way in. And here on the other side is the side that I technically could cut, but this is the reverse thread, so I'm not gonna do that. I feel so much better now that I have this cut off, similar to the passenger side here. You can see here this is completely bottomed out, and here, and I didn't even cut any of the rod, I just kind of shortened down the end of this and it went all the way in. So hopefully that should help. Tie rods are now reinstalled back into the car, and the car is put back onto the wheel dollies. So it looks like it's pretty straight right here and over here. So now on to the next step, actually measuring everything out. I think this is pretty much everything I'm gonna need in order to do the string alignment. I have 2 pairs of floor jacks, 1 in each corner of the car, and they just need to be about the same height. I have 2 PVC pipes. They don't need to be the same diameter. It's more important just the length of them. I have the tape measure here to measure out the PVC pipes, this ruler, some sockets, and the string. Let's get started. PVC pipes are now cut, measured out, and I put these slits on there so that the strings can ride on them. I made sure that these slits are the exact same length on both sides so that this one PVC pipe can go here. The second one is gonna go to the back. Oh, I have to clear my Shin Buster 3000. There you go. So now I can put a string here all the way to the other slit, and then the same thing from here all the way over there, and then I'll measure everything out to make sure everything's nice and square. Before getting started on the alignment for the front steering, you also want to make sure that your steering wheel is going to be straight. Now, since I pulled the steering wheel off of the steering box in the past, I'm not 100% sure the orientation of how this is even installed, and there's kind of a trick that I follow. What you want to do is you go all the way to the very end of either side, whichever, and you want to count how many revolutions it takes until it goes full lock on the other side. So just take note of where this is positioned here. So this is a little bit horizontal, maybe a little bit higher up. So let's count how many times it goes all the way around. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3, and a little bit under half. So let's call that like 3.4. So let's go all the way back to the very beginning again. And 3.4 turns, we're gonna cut that down the middle to 1.7 turns. So that's a little bit more than 1.5. So again, I'm starting off here at my starting point, a little bit higher than horizontal. So 1.5, and then a little bit more. So this should be pretty much the middle of the steering box, and you can see the steering wheel is definitely not straight. It's a little bit more crooked compared to when I first started, and originally it was like more horizontal, but because this should be right in the middle, we're actually going to go take a look at the pitman arm, and if that is in the middle, the pitman arm should be dead center to the beam, and it's going to be exactly at 90 degrees. There it is right there. So that pitman arm should be exactly perpendicular to this beam here, which means this steering wheel is a little bit crooked. This one's an easy fix. All I have to do is just loosen this clamp right here. Once this clamp is loosened, I can then go inside, yank on the steering wheel backwards, turn it just a tiny bit to where it's going to be flat, and then shove it back in and clamp it down. Super easy. So the clamp is already loose inside the steering box. You can't really tell that this is still crooked because you're looking at it from an angle, but I should be able to just pull this a little bit. There you go. Enough for this column to be removed from the coupler. I'm gonna turn it where I see it's straight, like that, and then shove it back in. Now I should be ready to tighten the clamp by the steering box. This clamp is now tightened. Let's take a look at how straight the steering wheel looks now. Oh yeah, that's pretty straight to me. All right, now we're ready to adjust the alignment. Okay, so I have my contraption with the PVC pipes and the strings kind of set up here. I have the PVC pipes standing on the jack stands, made sure all four are the same height. The string here is going through the socket. It's constantly pulling on it so that it has a tension going all the way to the back. This one here also going through the slit with the weight here, again, to pull on that tension. So the job of the slit is to basically keep the strings from going left and right too much, because the distance from here to there is exactly the same distance as this one and that one. And then you need the second one here on the driver's side also. Same exact setup with the socket through the slit, all the way down with the tension, with another socket at the very end. I'm gonna measure up each corner from the center of the wheel to the string here. And I'm gonna do that on all four and record my findings on this sheet of paper. What that's gonna allow me to do is help square up this setup around the Squareback so I know I have a good starting base. I just thought of something, and I think I'm gonna conduct some science really quick, because originally I was gonna put some air into all four of my tires just to make sure they're all the same PSI, and I was gonna aim maybe around 35 to 38, give or take, and I have no idea what these are right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure all the string on all four corners, make sure it's nice and square, the car is exactly perfectly centered to the square, and then I'm gonna fill all the PSI to about the same pressure, and then I'm gonna remeasure again on the string to see how much of that adjusted based on the PSI. Not really expecting too crazy of results here. I'm just checking to see if it changes by any bit of millimeters. All right, here we go. These are the measurements that I just made based on the center of the wheel to the string, both front and rear. Before I lined it up, it was 1 and 15/30 seconds, 2 and 12/30 seconds, and then I lined it all up so it's 1 and 15/16. Now between the left and the right, and then in the rear went from 2 and 9/30 seconds and 2 and 7/16 to a 2 and 3/8 on both sides. So I'm gonna pump some air in here and see if any of that changes. All right, I have the PSI set to about 37 now from before on all four corners. And I've written down all my new measurements here from 27 PSI to 37, 21 to 37, 31 to 37, and 14 to 37. And what I noticed here with my new measurements is that the two in the front shifted just a tiny bit over to the right. And then also the same in the back, went a tiny bit to the right from 2 and 3/8 to 2 and 13/30 seconds, 2 and 3/8 to 2 and 7/30 seconds, 1 15/16 to 1 and 27/30 seconds, and then 1 and 15/16 to 2 inches. Pretty cool. Now I have 35 PSI in all four corners, so now I'm gonna remeasure everything and make sure this is square to the proper PSI. I redid my sheet because it was kind of getting a little bit messy, but this is going to be the new sheet that I'm going to work with the new measurements. And you have to make sure the steering wheel is straight before readjusting any of the tie rods here. So at this point, all I care about is going to be the fronts. The rears, I can no longer do anything with that for now, but the front here with these numbers, 2 and 15 30 seconds, and 2 and 30 seconds. This is indicating that this has a lot of toe out, and this side here has also a lot of toe out. So I need to shorten this side, lengthen this side so that it matches up like that, and then over here same thing, lengthen this side so that this side goes in and it straightens that out. So I will basically be going up here, adjusting this, changes the toe, and then come back down here, remeasure this distance, and then do that over and over again until I can get this lined up. Finish measuring everything out, and surprisingly the numbers look really good. Here in the center was again 1 and 29 30 seconds on both sides, and then here I was able to shift it so that it's now matching in the front here, 2 and 25 30 seconds, and then in the rear is 2 and 26 30 seconds. And you do that just a little bit so that it has both a tiny bit of toe in, and that will help with the alignment of the car. Now the last thing is just to torque down the tie rod ends here on both inners, and once that's tightened down, everything should be pretty much good to go. I think I do still need to tighten the outer tie rods. All right, dudes, driving the Squareback, just a quick little test drive real quick, but the steering wheel is now crooked this way, whereas before it was that way. But at least the toe is pretty straight. I mean, I kind of been testing it up and down, and I'm going straight without even holding anything. So really it's just the steering wheel. So right now I'm gonna go to the gas station and fill up my jerry can because I still don't have my gas tank in there. I also brought my extra jerry cans in the back over there so that I can fill those up. When I get back home, I'm gonna put my gas tank back in, fill my gas tank with whatever gas I got, and then go back to the gas station, get a full tank, and then retest the driving, because really the alignment is kind of set. Well, it should be set once it has all the weight in there. I probably should have done it with my weight in here or put some dumbbells, but I kind of forgot that. So that'll be for future Jeremy. But for now, I think this is gonna be the video for the alignment. Thanks for following along, guys. See you in the next one.